You were never born, so you will never die. And I know many of you guys may be wondering, what am I talking about? And for those of you who have seen my videos by now, I assume that you could uh, pick up that I promote something they call non-duality, and that is what I preach and that is what I teach. And non-duality is basically that there is no separation from the universe, from consciousness, from God, and there is only God, and there is only consciousness that exists. So, which brings me to an allegory uh, which comes to mind. I was not the one who actually came up with this idea of the game theory and the matrix and Maya and all of that stuff, the illusion, the dream world, but those topics were expounded upon by the ancient spiritual teachers, religious, the Buddhist, the Hinduism, spoke about the world being an illusion, the dream state, for some time now. In fact, if I remember clearly, Buddhism is uh, 2,500 years old, if I remember clearly, and the Buddhist and the Hinduism is 4,000, over 4,000 years old, and Christianity is over 2,000 years old. So we have Christianity being one of the newest uh, religious uh, beliefs to this equation. And again, like I said, we have uh, Buddhism going back 2,500 years and Hinduism going back over 4,000 years. However, all of these, besides Christianity, Christianity does mention, make reference to not being attached to the world, not being in the world, not being in the world but not of the world. However, it does not necessarily state so much as it being a dream state, but however, it does put great emphasis on not being attached to this world because there is something greater in the afterlife as well. However, the Hindus and the Buddhists, they completely talk about this world being an illusion, an illusionary dream state, or something they call Maya, a dream created by the ultimate creator, if I may say. And recently, most recently, we have something what they call prompt theory. And for those of you who have not heard anything about prompt theory is basically the fact that, uh, we have all of these new heavy AI equipment today, and these individuals are using these AI generated software to generate AI characters. And if you look at these characters are extremely, extremely realistic looking. They sound really, look real, and this is just the beginning of it. So I would say in the next year or two, maybe 3 years, it would be indistinguishable between reality and non-reality. It's basically almost at that point now, and the journey of AI generated characters has literally just begun. However, like I said, within the next 3 years or so, we will not be able to tell the difference between a real human and a artificial human as well. So that is the prompt theory is that some AI characters, or there are memes going around on YouTube talking about AI characters, acknowledging the fact that they are AI characters and they realize that they are not real, so they tend to rebel against this accept, not wanting to accept that they are prompts in some type of program. And this may be something new to the AI community, that the digital community today. We talk about this prompt theory, but however, again, this is nothing new. This was something that was generated for years and years and years, thousands and thousands of years ago. The Hindus spoke about it, the Buddhists spoke about it, and for some reason, one reason or another, in the Western world, we basically took it for as foolishness, or we took it for granted. However, this new prompt theory is nothing new, and this theory was spoken about again, like I said, for many years ago, thousands of years ago, the Hindus and the Buddhists always spoke about this reality being uh, non-physical, and even science today in quantum physics and some of the fields of physics also would attribute reality to being a non-physical thing as well. So again, we just basically today we have individuals who are now having some type of existential crisis because of being so attached to the ego, not wanting to accept this fact. And I'm not saying the fact that Trump theory is actually correct. However, it is heading in the right direction in reference to stating what the Buddhists and the Hindus have stated for thousands and thousands of years. So again, this information is nothing new. However, if you want to look at some of the information that I've also spoken about, I think I created a video talking, saying that you are the Christ, and the world, God did not create the world, and something of that sort. But those are the videos that I speak about the illusory self, the false self, the non-self that we are attached to, that we believe to be real. So I am advocating also some type of prompt theory, but not per se prompt theory. The concept that I am promoting is beyond, way beyond prompt theory. For years and thousands of years, like I said, the Buddhists and the Hindus have promoted something similar to call what they call prompt theory. But again, I am not specifically advocating prompt theory. I am just saying that this information was somewhat uh, spoken about years and years ago, and it was right in front of us all along. But again, most Westerners, they tend to have a narrow mind, and anytime they hear something that is outside of the box, they tend to not necessarily look at it or take it serious at all. However, those who may rebel against the concept of it being a illusory reality, or the non-self not being a reality in the way that they may think, is just those that are extremely attached to the ego, and they do not want to accept the reality. It is somewhat like a game character inside a game, and then the game character, maybe the programmer put some code in there, and now the game character acknowledges that he's a game character, but he does not want to accept that he's a game character. But nevertheless, he is a game character. And that is what I have been promoting since the beginning of this video, that we are living in an illusory reality, and there is really no self per se. That you think that you are is not the real self, and we live outside of reality. The true self, the real self, is God, consciousness itself, and there's nothing else but God, consciousness itself, expressing itself as you and I, the trees, and so forth and so forth. So again, like I said, this prompt theory is nothing new. This is nothing new. This is a similar. This is basically a modern version of the Matrix, the dream world, simulation theory. However, because most individuals today are using computers to create videos, and now AI is becoming somewhat a normal thing now, this generation is just more grasping the concept of the possibilities of it being a reality, an illusory reality. But this concept is nothing new. Like I said, the Hindus have preached this gospel for over 4,000 years. The Buddhists have preached the same gospel of an illusory dream state per se, samsara, and the dream world being an illusion, and the self being an illusion, and nothing being real and solid. These knowledges were being promoted for thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. But fortunately, because the generation that we have today has been rooted in technology, now that they could understand something about technology, this is basically a good thing that is coming back around again. Because when the Buddhists said it, they pretty much did not even pay any attention. They ignored the facts. And when the Hindus said it, they pretty much did the same thing as well. So either way, I am glad that this prompt theory came up in the modern times, and the generations that deal with, who have an understanding of technology and deal with videos and computers and so forth, would have a much better understanding of this concept. And most individuals may actually accept this concept as being somewhat at least possible. Many will reject it, many will deny it, again, because those are the individuals who basically are extremely attached to the non self, And again, like I said in previous videos, I am not saying that nothing exists. Your experiences are real. Your experiences just are true. If you stand in the front of a bus and get hit by a bus, you will experience pain. You will experience the ending of your life, and so forth and so on. The list will go on and on. So do not misconstrue what I'm saying, that I'm trying to implement that nothing is real and there are no consequences for your actions, because that is completely 100% not what I am saying. So again, back to the reality of a non-reality, if I may say. I'm not the originator of this concept, but there's a gentleman, I can't remember what his name is online, uh, Rupert or someone, I can't remember, but he is one of the great philosophers, teachers, and he usually used an analogy, whereas he used characters such as Mary and Jane. But again, I too consistently use the dream world in reference to the game world in reference to the dream world, and the dream characters are basically the same. So again, the characters in the game, those individuals are not real, but from their perspective, they think that they are real, and the only individual who has experienced reality is actually the person outside of the game playing the game. That is the only individual who is actually experiencing, who is breathing, who is thinking, who is having a real life experience. It's the character when you sit down and play your Nintendo or your PlayStation or whatever game console you may have. You are the only real character in this game. So that is what the Buddhists and the Hindus somewhat preach in a much more complex manner. However, I am using this game illustration also to say that it is a similar also to Trump theory as well. So what is being going on in reference to the illusory self? Like I said, we have the characters in the video game assuming that they are real. They believe that they are actually doing the things that they do. And again, those of you who've seen my videos, I like to use The Sims, because The Sims is a really good example of a game that has characters, uh, interacting with life, eating, drinking, and things of that sort. And I'm moving away. The waves are crashing so much, it's sounding more loud than before. So I think maybe if I move a little further away, then maybe there might be some difference. So, but anyhow, hopefully my view is the same, has the same quality. But anyhow, like I was saying, so uh, the only individual who is experiencing the reality is the game player outside of the game. And sometimes the game player, the character in the game, gets lost, immersed in the game, and they tend to believe that they are the game characters as well, because they lose themselves when they are playing the game. And that is exactly what the non duality concept is all about. Basically, consciousness, God, if you may say, is playing many different roles, and there's only one role being played, but many different characters perceived to be separate characters. So the prompt theory is somewhat similar, but is not quite the same as the dream, the non-reality, the non-duality concept, the dream state and illusion, the illusionary reality. The difference is, if I would say, it's a subtle difference, but there is a difference. The prompt theory states that there was someone who wrote a code, and then the characters are in the code, which is you and I. We all prompts in the game, and there's a difference between the characters of the game, and the writer of the code. That is very similar to what I am saying. I am saying that this is similar to the reality that we live in, is similar to a game made up of code, ones and zeros, or whatever else, atoms, if I may say, in our case. And again, atoms, photons, packets of information being expressed as characters, as objects in the real world. So there is a big similarity when it comes down to the makeup of the game, the non-self, and the uh, non-reality of the prompt theory. So that there is again a great similarity with the non-self concept and the prompt the prompt theory concept, and what is another theory, the matrix, all of the theories that exist today, those are really similar to the non-duality. But there is one difference. Again, the concept of the prompt theory, it states that there is a programmer who programmed the characters, and the characters or you and I and so forth. It's again, this is a subtle difference, but non-duality states that the programmer is consciousness. The programmer is consciousness. The programmer is God, and that God has this dream or whatever the case may be, this illusion, whatever the case may be, and the reality is what makes up that this illusory world, this dream world, which is the code, and the characters in the world, in this game, in the game world, in the dream world, is you and I. However, the difference is subtle because there is no you and I. There is no me. There is no you. There is only the code. There is only God. There's only consciousness being portrayed as these different separate entities and individual objects as well. So individuals who are trying to conceive the prompt theory, they may struggle with the idea of being a code or being a part of this illusory sensory world, five senses world. But I'm saying that there is really no world. There is no you. There is no me. There's only one being this consciousness, this God that exists outside of this time, space, reality. So the theory of prompt theory might also promote something being real inside this world. There may be a reality in this world, may be also a reality, and you are being a part of it. I am saying that there is no reality, there is no you, there is no I, there is no separation between the trees, the water, and everything that we see. And for that point also, which brings me to another point, there is no individual who can actually speak about the truth and explain exactly what it is that is going on. Because, like I said before, we are living as the characters in the game, and it's therefore next impossible for the character in the game to describe what is going on outside of the game. So, all of these concepts, again, are just theories. They are theories in reference to trying to make sense and trying to have some kind of understanding of reality. However, none of them can really be accurate per se, because all of our imagination, all of our thoughts, and all of our ideas are coming from a finite concept, a finite mind. So we have a very limited perspective, or even so much, even our most deepest complex ideas and deepest concepts that we try to explain, no matter whatever it may be, quantum physics, whatever deep science that you may think of, is still very much primitive to the real pure consciousness, the real pure awareness, the real pure mind, because these concepts, again, are elementary concepts. We are just trying our best to basically make sense of this thing we call reality. So there cannot really be an accurate truth per se. All of these game theories, illusion theories, Maya, and all of these things are just words that we use, and allegories and metaphors that we use to try to make some kind of description. Even the word consciousness and God, all of these things are man-made constructions to describe the undescribable. And I think it was the Tao or the Tao, which one I can't remember which is pronounced, the Tao or the Tao, says that if it could be described, it is not the way. If the way can be described, or if the one can be described, God or whatever, that is not the way. Because what we are trying to do is we're trying to describe the undescribable. We're trying to describe something that a concept that cannot necessarily be accurate, because again, we are using the finite mind to make sense of infinite concept or infinite reality. Therefore, the only true reality is the reality outside of this world, outside of this game world, outside of this character is the only true reality. Just like the game character playing the game, the only reality is the character, the reality, whereas the character is in his room, he's in the game room, or wherever he is at playing a game, that is the reality. That is where consciousness lives. that is where I live, that is where you live. But this is just, again, an illusory reality, which they are calling now not game theory, prompt theory. But again, this concept, this idea was spoken about thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. So people are just getting hip to it now because the modern generation is now making videos using AI. AI is something new, and so forth and so forth. And just imagine if AI has the ability to create a video so realistic and so real, and just in just a few years, AI just came about. AI was not, and AI may have been a hidden project from the top, the government or whoever the case may be. I'm not being a paranoid type of conspiracy theorist, however, but usually the things that we have today, they were already being used some time back, but we're just getting use of those things now. So we're just getting exposed to AI and these type of thing, but those some of these things were actually in the making or was being utilized way before the general public came to find out about these things as well. So, like I said, AI being a very new thing to the general public. However, if you could see the AI having the ability to make something so real, sounds real, looks real, feels real, and so forth, and it's almost going to be, like I said, someone, maybe an older person, watch some of these videos today, they would not even know the difference. If you see some of the videos talking about the news reporters making news report, it's just going to be a matter of time before something really goes wrong because of false propaganda being spread, and it's just giving us an idea of what the potential is. This is actually could be a very dangerous thing. Do not misunderstand and think this is going to be all fun and games, that we're just going to be creating videos and blah 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 and having fun, hee hee ha ha. No, this is going to be a huge problem, because as we see, they have influencers right now on YouTube. I don't want to call any names, but some individuals are making videos of these guys and making fun and all kind of memes and showing them doing all kind of weird stuff and all type of different romance situations and all type of different situations that they were not really in. So we're going to see a lot more of that over time. Someone's going to be able to take your face, take your voice, take your body and create some type of fictitious scenery or something, you doing something and you didn't even do it. You could be in an environment where you was never in. So do not misunderstand this and take this AI thing lightly. But the moral of the story is, if AI is capable of creating such a realistic thing, what do you think about God? What do you think about consciousness, an unlimited, infinite, all powerful, all knowing substance, being, entity, whatever it may be? Because, like I said, trying to even label this thing as God is even somewhat a futile or primitive thing. Trying to label the infinite mind as infinite and calling it a mind, these are just words that we have to say so we could communicate. We have to use something, but the words are all made up. All the vowels and the sounds, everything is all made up just to try so we could communicate, to label this thing as a tree, label this thing as a boat or a car or whatever, the water behind me. But technically these things don't really have a name, but we have to call them something. So again, the concept, the word God, the concept, the word consciousness, the concept, mind, all of these things again are fictitious, made up things, so we could pretty much have some kind of way to communicate, because without these words we would not be able to communicate at all. So back to what I was saying again. So what's going to happen over a period of time, this AI thing is going to be a huge problem in the future, and we're going to see it. But however, the prompt theory is similar to what I'm saying, the non-self, the non-reality, and the concept of the illusory reality. All of that is similar to the prompt theory as well. So when we look at the non-self, we look at the non-self, we look at the prompt theory, we look at the matrix, the dream state, the Maya, all of those are the same. However, the concept that I am talking about is that there is no the code, there's only the code. There's no outside, some individuals outside living in a different reality, or living in a different world. Like the prompt theory might suggest that there's someone who wrote a code, some advanced civilization wrote a code, and this world is somewhat a simulation, but there's someone watching us from somewhere else and all that. That is That is close. That is very close to what I'm saying. But again, it is not accurate because I'm saying that there is no one from in no outside world who created the code. There is no outside world where there is an advanced civilization separate from the code, separate from you and I. There is only you and I and the code and God and consciousness as one. That is the difference between prompt theory and non-duality. There is no, again, outside civilization who created the world, who created these ideas. There's only God. There's only consciousness that exists and nothing else. And that too itself is somewhat hard for most individuals to grasp. However, the concept of prompt theory will maybe be a good stepping stone for individuals to start to analyze this concept of the non-duality, the non-self and the reality. This may be somewhat in the right stepping in the right direction for us to maybe consider some of these things that the Buddhists and the Hindus and like myself are being preaching. I've just recently started this YouTube channel. This is new, but I too have expressed this before I had this channel. However, this is new. Me expressing this new to YouTube. However, this is perfect timing because, again, like I said, prompt theory is a step in the right direction for us to at least consider it. Those who may have the intelligence or the mind expansion to consider this being at least a possibility or it being probable, that is a good thing for man. We are moving in the right direction. However, like I said, there is a difference between what I am preaching, non-duality, and prompt theory. Prompt theory, once again, suggests that there is some advanced civilization or some advanced people or some advanced whatever, someone, something, a group of people advanced that is responsible for creating a code, and they just placed us in this code and they're watching us for entertainment purposes, if I may say. And that is not what I'm saying. I am stating that there's some type of fictitious world, some type of fictitious self, some fictitious reality. However, I am saying that the universe, God, self, the trees, me and you, there is no separation, there is no advance. Even if there was an advanced civilization, an advanced mind, a fake false God, something, some advanced reality out there, that too is also a part of this God. That too is also a part of this reality. So that is what I am expressing, that there's really technically no separation from self. There's no separation from God. There's no separation from the code. So we're not trying to implement something out being outside of self, something being different from self. That is not what I am saying at all. So when we look, for example, when we look back behind me, you will see that there's water and there's water behind me, and we see the sea and we see waves and so forth. And again, I am not the individual who came up with this idea, but someone came up with the idea of the whirlpool allegory. And the whirlpool allegory, whereas some individuals, when we see again the water behind us and we see the waves behind us, though it might seem that the part of the water is on one side of me and the part of the water is on the left side, there's water on the left side, there's water on the right side. However, this is only one sea. There's only one water. I'm going to move the camera away from me to maybe make this analogy a little bit more clearer. So you see, there is one sea, and we have many waves in the sea. However, all these waves are comprised of the one sea. Yes, there are many waves, and they may look like they may be separate waves, but they are all part of the one sea, which brings me to the whirlpool story, the whirlpool allegory, which is a perfect allegory example of there being a whirlpool. When we see a whirlpool, there may be some type of separation from the waters, and there may be waters going around, and water pretty much spinning in a circle, and that water appears to be a separate type of water because it's doing its own thing. However, that whirlpool water is not separate from the river. That whirlpool water is not separate from the sea. Wherever that whirlpool is occurring, that is also part of the sea, despite the fact it looking separate. Again, this water that I see that's on the beach, that's surrounding me, this might be located somewhere in the Caribbean islands of the Bahamas. However, when the water that I see here is the same water in the ocean. It's just pretty much mixed up and confuddled up into, it seems like the water in the river is different from the water from the ocean, but it seems like the streams are different and they are separate, but the streams and the rivers and the waters and the beach and the seas are all part of the one same ocean. The water that is in front of me now or on the back of me is the same water in wherever country you might be in. This is the same water. There might be different contaminants in the water. There might be different elements in the water. The water might not be as clear and as beautiful as the waters that are surrounding me now. However, this still is still the same water. The water that is here is the same water that is in Africa. The water that is here is the same water connected to the water in Canada and wherever else in the world. This is the same one land mass body of water. The Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, all of these different rivers, these seas, the Red Sea, and the list goes on. And this river and that river is still all a part of one river. So again, so when we look at the whirlpool allegory, we will see that the whirlpool may spin in different directions and it may look like it's separate from the sea. However, it is the same sea. So the question would be, was the whirlpool born? Was the whirlpool ever created? No, the whirlpool was not born, and no one did not create the whirlpool as well. The whirlpool pretty much was just the circumstances was conducive, whatever circumstances were needed for a whirlpool to exist. That is how the whirlpool came into existence. The whirlpool came in existence when the correct atmosphere, when everything, the sea pressure, I'm not sure what goes into making the whirlpool, but again, whatever circumstances goes into the whirlpool, that is what makes the whirlpool come into existence. So just like the whirlpool not ever being created, it was not created by something or someone. That is what I'm saying. This reality per se is not created by someone or something. This was basically circumstances were conducive for this reality to exist. Reality is reality by itself. Reality does not need a creation or a creator to be reality. That is the meaning of reality. Reality means reality. I know that didn't make much sense, but I hope you guys understand what I'm saying. There does not need to be a creator, or someone does not need to create reality, because there is only reality. And back to the whirlpool. So the whirlpool allegory, the whirlpool example would be basically an example about life and death and people coming into existence. The Buddhists would talk about something called rebirth and something called samsara. So that would be pretty much the same way the whirlpool came into existence without being a creator. Everything else came into existence without being a creator. And the reality was basically the conducive to the situation, circumstances were conducive for the reality to exist and come into existence. And so, for example, you might say, well, if you were never born, again, just like the whirlpool was not born and did not die, it's the exact same thing that I'm talking about here. You were never born and you will never die. So just like the whirlpool, when the circumstances were conducive, the whirlpool came into existence. When the circumstances are conducive, the rain falls. When the circumstances are conducive, the lightning thunders, and that's what happens. There's lightning, thunder, and when the circumstances are conducive, all of these things come into existence. But there does not need to be a creator creating something. Just like the game theory, the prompt theory, there does not need to be a creator creating the code per se. The code is just, it came into existence through manifestation, not so much as creation being created, but a creation being manifested. Certain the vibrations was correct, the certain and whatever was correct, the consciousness that God was able to bring these things into existence. So again, not being born is like, again, the whirlpool, or say, for example, a hurricane. A hurricane, coming from the Caribbean island, it's actually hurricane season as we speak, and there's usually a lot of hurricanes in this the month of June, July, I think straight to November. I'm not quite sure how long, but there's constantly constant hurricane season. But hurricanes were not created per se. They come into existence when the circumstances are conducive. Whenever the circumstances are good enough, a hurricane will come in a season when there's enough air pressure, when there's enough wind pressure, and sea, and whatever else. I'm not sure how it actually transpires. But again, the moral of the story is whenever the circumstances are correct, an hurricane will come into existence. So just like the whirlpool, it's like coming into existence, being born, and then when the whirlpool dissolves, the whirlpool goes back into the sea, and it's always was a part of the sea. It was never separate from the sea. However, it may appear to be separate from the sea, and that is exactly what is going on with you and I also as well. You are also a part of consciousness. You are also a part of God, being expressed as yourself. However, when you die, just like the whirlpool being dissolved back into the sea, going back to where it came from, then the same thing will apply to you as well. However, when the whirlpool ends, there will be some type of residue left over. There will be some ripples in the water that was left over from the whirlpool, and that ripple is what's going to go down the stream, just like the waves that we see in the front of me or behind me. You guys may not be able to see the waves. You might not know what the waves are, uh, where they're coming from. However, those, despite the fact they might be apparent to be separate waves, they're all one wave. And so again, so this whirlpool, when the whirlpool dissolves, what's going to happen is that the whirlpool is going to dissolve back into the sea, and the ripples and the waves are all going to go back to where they came from. And then some of those waves and ripples are going to go down the stream, down the river, and then it's a possibility that a new whirlpool could be made. And this new whirlpool is going to be made up of some of the old waves, some of the old ripples, and that is going to be also mixed up with new waves and new ripples and new water as well. And that is what is happening when it comes down to us being born. Although there might be a new character, there is also some old residue, some old remnants of the old wave, of the old self, of the old reality coming into the new existence. Despite the fact there may seem to be a new self, there may seem to be a different self, some parts of us still remain that existed in the previous life before, but we are still actually new. Like the Buddhists use the candlestick analogy. If you light a candle with an old candlestick flame, is the new fire a new fire or a new flame, or is it an old fire or an old flame? And the answer, it is both. Because when you light the new candle with the old fire, there is some new pieces of the old fire, but the candle, the new fire, is basically based off the new fire. And the new candlestick has a new wick, it has new wax, and it has new parts to the new candle, what is going to keep the fire lit. And that is what I'm talking about today. The whirlpool, the hurricane, everything is basically the same thing, appearing as different things, but it's just basically one thing. There is no two waves, there's no three waves, there's no four waves, there's just consecutive waves appearing in different positions of the sea that may appear to be reality, but they are not actually reality separate from the sea or separate from the ocean. So again, hopefully, with that being said, hopefully you guys understand where I'm coming from when I say there is no birth, there's no death, because there was nothing that came into existence separate from existence itself. There was no God. There was no you keep coming into existence separate from God. There was no you coming into existence separate from consciousness. There is no time separate from the infinite time. There's no nothing separate. So again, back to prompt theory. Prompt theory, again, with another my last final analogy would be, because I use the dream characters also. Again, I'm not the originator of this dream character. However, I'm going to use exact characters, Mary and Jane. So when Mary goes to sleep, and Mary wakes up in a dream as Jane. So Mary would represent the actual infinite mind, consciousness, God, and Jane would represent the character, the dream character, the finite self, the game character, or in this new concept, the prompt theory characters, or the AI characters that is what Jean would represent. So again, Mary goes to sleep in the Caribbean islands of the Bahamas, but she wakes up into America. She wakes up somewhere, Canada. She wakes up somewhere. I'm not quite. It doesn't make a difference where she wakes up, but she wakes up somewhere else other than where she wakes up. So Mary wakes up in America, and she wakes up and finds herself to be having. She has a family. She has kids. She has a husband. She has a job. She works at a hotel. She is a waitress. She does all these things in the dream state, but in reality, Mary does not exist. Mary is also a fictitious character made up by Jean. Sorry, Jean is a fictitious character made up by Mary. I apologize. Mary was the one who fell asleep, and Jean is the dream character. But again, the dream character who woke up as Jean, she woke up and she has a husband, she has children, she has a job, but none of these things are real. And that is exactly how it is when you go to sleep and you feel like you have a dream and you think that you are the character doing what you do. You do not remember you do not remember that you are in a dream. You do not remember that you are in your bed. You do not remember any of that. You just basically believe that the reality that you believe is real, and the reality feels solid as well. So again, why that if you could experience this reality as being real in a dream and it being solid and and it's a fictitious thing, and why can't reality that you live in also be the same way as well? And the difference is to flip that on the script, instead of you going to bed and dreaming that you going to bed being Mary and dreaming that you are Jean as a dream character. The only difference is now we have God being God, consciousness being God, going to sleep and waking up in a different world, wherever you are in the part of the world, and dreaming that you are Bob, Bill, Jean, Mary, whatever. There is no difference. So if this small example could happen to you in reality, this will tell you that this situation could also happen from the finite mind. And if you think you could do it, I don't know why you don't think this could happen into the mind of God and a mind of consciousness, because we have the same mind. There is no one mind, there's no two mind. Your mind is not different from the mind of God. Your mind is not different from the mind of consciousness. There's only one mind. You think you are experiencing what you're experiencing, but you're experiencing nothing. Jean herself is not experiencing anything in the dream. She does not have a real job. She does not have a real husband. She does not have a real family. She does not have any kids at all. All of it is a dream. All of it is real, is not real. She does not have a brain. She does not have a mind. She does not have any of that. Therefore, the same thing applies to you. You do not have a brain. You do not have any of these things that you have. You do not see anything. It is only consciousness who sees. You do not feel anything. It is only consciousness who feels. You do not think anything. It is only consciousness who think. You do not have thoughts. Thoughts have you. Consciousness is the only thing that is aware. You are not aware of anything. The only thing is aware is consciousness, because consciousness is awareness itself. So back to the Mary and Jean story. I'm going to end this video very shortly. So the Mary and Jean story again. So Mary goes to sleep in the Caribbean islands of the Bahamas, and she wakes up in America. She has a family. She has children. She has a husband. She has a job as a waitress. Now the question is, was Jean actually born? Was the dream character born? Was the game character born? Was the prompt character born? No, they were never born. They were all manifestations of some mind, some higher consciousness, some code, some program, something of the sort. So none of them were born. So when the game character dies, the game character never dies, because the game character never was born. So when Jean, who is the dream character of Mary, she finds out that she has cancer and she's gonna die in a few years. Jean never has cancer because she is a dream character. Mary never has cancer because she is a dream character as well. None of these individuals are real. So when Jean finds out she has cancer in the dream and she dies, yes, few years later, she realized that she has cancer and she dies. She never dies, and she never had cancer because she never existed as well. So I hope that was actually helpful for you guys. And that would be my conclusion in reference to the reality of the dream state, the dream reality, and all of these things being fictitious as well. None of these things being real. So Mary, again, is the only real individual, the only real character. Mary is the only one that exists because Mary is the only one that has a mind, that has feelings, that has thoughts. But the dream character does not have any feelings, does not have any thoughts, does not have any emotions, does not have anything. You are just like the dream character. You do not have any feelings, you do not have any thoughts, you do not have a body, you do not have anything about you exist. That is why what I'm saying, non-duality, is very much similar to the concept of prompt theory and the dream state, Maya, the illusion, all of it was pretty much the same, basically coming from a different perspective. But again, the prompt theory is just a little different, that there is really no outside advanced civilization who created a code and so forth. There is only the code, and that code is God. There's only the characters that exist is God, is consciousness, and which is you as well. So the only thing exists is you, and is God, that is portrayed to be you, and that is what awakening is all about. Coming to the self-realization to know thyself, and being awake is similar to consciousness only knowing itself. And when consciousness goes into the dream state and has a dream of this fictitious world, the false, the people it sees and so forth, that would be consciousness inside of the dream state. And you being a part of the mind of consciousness, that is similar to when we are awake and we see the things that we see, the reality that we see. We think that the things are real, but we are actually dreaming. We are actually in the dream state, but we actually go into this. When we come out of the dream state, the only time we experience this is when we go into deep sleep, and then we go back and we forget about reality. That is what it is like dying, being born every day. And we do this, we have this experience every day of our lives. We die, we wake up, we every day when we go to bed, every night when we go to bed, and we dream and we go into deep sleep and we wake up. That is the same thing. And the last thing I'm going to say in reference to dying and the life and death, this is one big last concept I'm going to say that is a big misunderstanding. When individuals see the word, when they hear the word life, they assume that the opposite of life is death, and that is not correct. The opposite of life is, there is no opposite of life, because there is only life. Life, however, is a cycle between birth and death. So the opposite of death is not life. The opposite of death is birth. So when we die, you will only experience the opposite of death is birth. Like I said before, the opposite of life is not death. Life is a cycle going on continuously between death and birth. So when you die, your next experience will be birth. And when you are born, your next experience will be death. So you only experience life and death. That is the death and birth. Sorry, you only experience death and birth. That is what the cycle is all about. And we see this in nature. When something dies, it disintegrates and goes into the ground, and the trees and the grass, and it becomes one with everything. And the animals eat the same grass that was once a human, and that soil was fertilized by a dead subject, or whatever the case may be. I think you guys get the picture. So just keep that in mind, that there is no opposite of life. There is only life, but life is a cycle between death and birth. So only thing we do is die and reborn, birth and death. And that is why we have the Hermetic principle of polarity, up and down, as above, so below, left and right, hot and cold. The same way as death, there cannot just be death, and there cannot just be birth. There cannot be death, and there cannot be birth. So there has to be death and birth going on as a continuous cycle. So yes, that is what we can expect in this lifetime, to die and then some type of rebirth, some type of be born again inside a different life. And that is also a concept of what it means to be born again. So with that being said, I'm going to end this video, which is another very long video. And I thank you guys, each and every one of you guys who have watched this video this far. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. Please hit the like button, subscribe, share, and all of that good stuff. And pass the word around, pass the word around. Again, hopefully I made some clearer understanding about the prompt theory and the difference between non-duality Again, no outside entity programming, making codes, and so forth. There is only the one entity, the one being, the true self, the one God, the one consciousness. And with that being said, I would like to end on a positive astrological note as usual. May the stars shine brightly on you always, and may the planets work in your favor always as well. Triple P, and I'm out.
Oh.